Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Neil Howard, here on Health Professional Radio. Thank you so much for joining us again. In this segment, we're going to be speaking with returning guest Brian Culley, CEO of Lineage Cell Therapeutics. Lineage Cell Therapeutics is a clinical stage biotechnology company. He's coming back to talk about the latest clinical advancements with the company's lead cell therapy program for dry age-related macular degeneration, as well as its spinal cord injury and non-small cell lung cancer programs. Welcome back, Brian. How have you been?
I have been great. Thanks. It's great to be here.
Well, I'm glad that you decided to lend us some more of your time. For those who may not be familiar with you as a contributor, why don't you give us a bit of your professional background and tell us how you came to be at Lineage?
Well, I'd be delighted. So I've been the CEO at Lineage for between 3 and 4 years. My background spans from basic research. I used to wear a white lab coat and call myself a gene jockey. And then I went through a couple of other related, life science related fields, mostly to do with technology transfer and business development. So that's the buying and selling of different drug development opportunities before I got an opportunity to become a CEO some years ago. And this is my third time being the CEO of a biotech company.
Tell us a bit about Lineage's vision, its cell therapy platform.
Lineage it's a U.S.-based public company, so of course I always invite people to refer to our risk factors at the SEC.gov. And what we are committed to is we have the ability to manufacture very specific types of cells of the human body, and then we use those cells as a replacement for cells that have lost due to injury or disease. So, for example, your body is made up of about 200 different cell types. And let's say one of those cells that had an important function was dying off due to aging or had been harmed through disease or injury. We could manufacture that cell type and replace it. And as long as it's functional and stable, you may be able to get some of those benefits back that you had lost.
Now, the last time that you were here, we talked about Lineage's cell therapies for dry AMD, spinal cord injuries, and non-small cell lung cancer. Let's talk about some of the latest advancements with these three programs.
Yeah, so dry AMD is one of the leading causes of blindness. So just continuing on that last answer, what we do in the setting of dry AMD is we manufacture brand new replacement retina cells for people who are losing their vision due to dry AMD. The biggest recent advancement that we had with that program is we entered into a $670 million license agreement, pharmaceutical company Roche and Genentech, to support that program and move it farther through human testing. Mm-hmm. Our spinal cord injury program is similar, except we make a different type of cell. We manufacture one of the cells that comprise your spinal cord, and we replace those cells in the spinal cord for people who have suffered a devastating spinal cord injury and have lost the ability to move their arms and legs. And in cancer, we do something related, but we yet make a different kind of cell. We manufacture a dendritic cell, which helps carry information to your immune system. And all three of these programs are currently in clinical testing.
Are these compounds going to be indicated for any age group, or are there going to be certain restrictions as far as age and type of injury?
The answer is it tends to be driven by the kind of problem that the patient has. So dry AMD typically is a disease of the elderly. You're essentially outliving, it's an aging problem. You're outliving your functional retina cells, and they break down and die off, and so we would replace them. So that patient population tends to be in their 70s and 80s and 90s. That's very different than the setting of spinal cord injury. Spinal cord injury, the number one cause is car accidents, but we also see a lot of people who tend to be much younger. These would be people who have your classic diving board incident, your mountain bike crashes, and other things that are sometimes associated with younger males. So it's really tragic because they're faultless. Nobody expects to have a spinal cord injury, and these are people who have their whole lives ahead of them. So we really run the entire range from some of the younger patients to middle age. You could have an epidural go wrong and could have a spinal cord injury, all the way out to the elderly that might be losing their vision or other function.
And as far as non-small cell lung cancer is concerned, what about the advancements in that program?
Yeah, that also does tend to be for an older population, whether it's an environmental factor or behavioral factor like smoking, or it could be genetic, and very often it's a combination of these things. Again, you're thinking typically in that case about people who might be in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. So again, it really does depend on what is the problem which we are trying to treat.
Now, I understand that Lineage recently announced the expansion to include treatments for hearing loss as well as blindness. Now, is this treatment for blindness somehow different than the treatment for dry AMD?
Yeah, I'm very excited about these new programs. So, yeah, there's another very important cell type in your eye and in my eye. So we've got one cell type in the retina, which is the RPE, but there's also something called the photoreceptors. You've heard of them called rods and cones. So different people could lose their vision from different conditions. Sometimes you need more RPE cells. Sometimes you need more photoreceptors. Sometimes you may need a combination of those cells. So we are capitalizing on our experience and our success in the vision setting with RPE cells to expand into photoreceptors. We've gone farther again, going into the manufacture of auditory neurons for hearing loss. Now, some people, going back to what you were asking about the typical patient and their age, some people are born with dysfunctional hearing. And that could be a genetic reason. Other people may lose it through the environment, right? Too many rock concerts or the headphones. And some people, again, due to aging. And so there's actually a tremendous number of individuals who suffer from hearing loss, and many of them could potentially benefit from the use of replacement or transplant auditory neurons to help them either preserve the hearing that they have or potentially regain some hearing as well.
Now, as far as the dry AMD, the spinal cord injury study, and the non-small cell lung cancer study, when do you anticipate these clinical trials to be completed, and how far along do you think FDA approval is?
Well, each of those is on its own path, and it depends, of course, on its success. So the dry AMD program has completed a phase 1/2A clinical trial in 24 patients, and it will continue on into larger clinical trials. And similarly, the spinal cord program, that program has been in 30 individuals with spinal cord injury, and the data from that program also supports continuing into larger trials. The non-small cell lung cancer program has had less clinical development to date. Only 8 patients have been treated so far, but we will be approaching the FDA later this year about a study that would allow us to treat additional patients in that setting. So they're all on very conventional and standard, albeit slow, timelines leading, we hope, ultimately to the approval of these therapies and access for patients who need them.
Is this included in the expected milestones this coming year for Lineage?
Well, we have a lot of milestones always at Lineage. In particular this year, we're working towards some of these regulatory steps that I've spoken to. I've been emphasizing those regulatory interactions because the feedback that you receive from the FDA gives you a lot of information about the size of the studies you need to run, how many patients, how long it's going to take, and the kind of data that you're going to collect. That's very important information for investors and for doctors, because it really speaks to how quickly you're able to move through the process of testing a new therapy and when you're going to get that exciting data that says, aha, we have something and we've demonstrated that it works. And hopefully if it works well and it's safe, it can ultimately get to those patients.
What do you see as the role of your partners as far as the advancement of your pipeline is concerned?
The partnerships play a tremendous role for Lineage. Partners offer you speed. They offer you non-dilutive funding. For example, we received $50 million from Roche and Genentech as an upfront payment to partner with us on our dry AMD program. Partners bring credibility. Partners bring capabilities. They add resources. Partners allow a small company like ours, to be able to expand and move faster. And the credibility and validation that they bring attract new investors, which means new capital that we can reinvest and grow faster. So whether you're talking about an Amazon or a Tesla or even a small company like a Lineage, partnering can be an important accelerant to your business.
Give us a website where our listeners can learn much more about Lineage.
Lineage is available at www.lineagecell.com, and we've got a lot of really fun videos sometimes from the patients themselves who have been on our therapies, talking about the life-changing experiences that they have had.
Brian, always a pleasure. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time today also.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with returning guest Brian Culley. Audio copies of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Listen in, download at SoundCloud, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Health Professional Radio.